Hey guys, it's me, Mike Taylor. I heard some feedback last week that you guys are working on your portfolios, and it might be helpful to do a little tutorial on InDesign, even just to help you get started. If that's helpful, I hope that's all right for this session. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend about 20 minutes or so just kind of running through at a high level how to use InDesign, some of the tips and tricks that I like to use. We'll see how far we can get in 20 minutes, but I do feel like it is one of the more useful graphic design tools that I've used in practice. You can use it anything for, your portfolios. So that's probably what you guys are going to be focusing on. But it's also useful for, say you're laying out a board, for a project. Say you're doing a little portfolio piece for work in terms of like a brochure. So say your boss says, I want you to build this little brochure for me. It'd be really helpful for layout design. So really helpful, really good little piece of software. One of the best. So between the Adobe suites, there's Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. Those three really cover 90% of the stuff in my head anyways that you're going to be using in the office for sure at an architectural office. There's of course other softwares, but those are the three Adobe softwares that can really help us out. So what I'd like to do is spend maybe 20 minutes or so getting to kind of some tips and tricks in InDesign to help us out. I've got a kind of old-ish portfolio that I thought might be helpful. You're welcome to borrow ideas from this for your own portfolios. If that's helpful. And let me just pop this open. I'll give you a preview of basically what we would be trying to get to for today. So where's my Dropbox? Just give me 1 second here. Open up my print portfolio, and I'll start with just kind of sharing, what my portfolio looks like. This is from 2018, so it's a little out of date, but it'll give you an idea of the things that we can do inside of InDesign, and some of the stuff we need to just put in place to make sure that everything is kind of working according to plan. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just show you kind of brief idea about what my portfolio looked like in 2018 while I was applying for some jobs. And, everybody's got a different portfolio style. So definitely don't, it doesn't have to be any certain way. There is no best. So there's no best way to do a portfolio. I would say that some common things are going to be keep it legible, keep it brief, get your best photos in there, get your best, little description, get your best graphics. Anyhow, let's get started. So show you this. This is it. So Mike Taylor, Selected Works. This is from 2018, as I mentioned. Usually what I like to do is this is just a little PDF viewer called Bluebeam, which is pretty good. But let's just get into this first of all, and I'll just show you a little bit of what this looks like. So first thing you'll notice is this is basically an 11 by 17 layout, but I'll show you more what this looks like in InDesign. Essentially, think of this as two 8.5 by 11 sheets that are essentially split down the middle, right? So imagine we have an 8.5 on the left and 8.5 on the right. And then when you print it, we have essentially a book layout. And that's really what InDesign was originally meant for, and then evolved into a lot of different, web design, graphic design, online design, all these fun things. So originally, we had products called, Publisher, Desktop Publisher, InDesign. These were and are, for books, right? So you can use them for anything, but essentially this is part of it is to get to books. So let's just walk us through this first little page here. We just got a little table of contents, a little repeated title. Let's walk you through a couple example pages. And this is really about the layout, right? So for me, super simple layout, little image on the left with a little, caption just below it. And on the right, a little image of actually for a net zero building. So this is from Mohawk College. A little image just showing kind of the process that we took to get to net zero. This is what's called a little energy budget. And then just a little preview of on the left and right here, just a little preview of what is this? What am I looking at? So just some ideas about what we can get to. Continuing, again, very simple layout. Remember, this is a book. So down the middle, we are unfolding it as if it were a book. So just keep that in mind as we kind of walk through these. And I'll show you how to do that inside of InDesign. So imagine we've got this page on the left, page on the right. Again, just a couple more images. On the left, we've got a little rendering showing the envelope performance, and on the right is really the final product, right? And then down left here, a very preliminary sketch from when we were starting the process. I would encourage us, when we're thinking about our portfolios, it could be helpful to do process documentation. So as much as you might think it's not finished, a lot of times it can be helpful in discussing ideas or objectives of projects or why you did things a certain way. It can be helpful to describe those things using images or sketches or drawings. And I truthfully encourage us to get these process images into our sets of, portfolio type stuff. It can be helpful for you to explain things. If you want to explain the process, that can be certainly a helpful thing to talk about at interviews when you're talking through your portfolios. Got some other images in here. These are more just renderings and some grasshopper work. This is from 2015, 2014. Anyhow, this is just a couple renderings and some grasshopper stuff. So just to give us some ideas, back to the idea of process, right? So I can't, in an interview, I can kind of describe what some of these functions are doing, but for those of us who know Grasshopper, it could be a fun exercise to kind of showcase, the software. Maybe you guys have a Dynamo script you've been working on, potentially. And then just continuing on, the page that I want to do for us today is something like this, something super simple. This is a model. I know you guys have plenty of models, from first year, second year, you guys have models that you've worked on in groups or alone. And I just want to get us to a page, something like this, to showcase your ability to build models. And, that could be a really powerful thing, even just thinking about it from a builder's perspective or architectural technologist perspective. We're putting things together with our hands, and we are clear on, there's a direction, we build it, and then it's finished. So this is the page that I'm going to build today. So think about, we got all these layouts, very similar style layouts, right? So they've all got a very similar template. And what I would encourage you to do is you can either build a template for yourself that you can emulate on every page, or you can kind of mix it up. You don't have to follow this at all. You can do whatever you like to do. But I would encourage you to, before you get the layouts all started, it could be helpful to get your images correctly set up, and think of it like a file structure, right? So where are you storing these images before you're going to start your layout? So where am I saving my images? Where do they live before I actually get them into InDesign? And anyhow, that's just an important part of layout stuff, is that we want to make sure that we know where the links exist if we need to update them. And I'll get more into that once we open up InDesign here. So I've already got something open, but I'm just going to show you, I've hit new just so you can see what it kind of looks like when we do hit new. And I'm just going to blow this up a little bit. So typically we'll see this, letter. This is my recent one here. What happens if I close this? Perfect. If we just come over here, we could go to print or, web. It's going to give us all of these kind of sizes that we can use. View all presets. You can see all the sizes we've got, letter, legal, tabloid. But for whatever reason, inside of InDesign, the standard unit is Pika, and it's not something that I use or am used to using. I would encourage us to use, you can just drop this down on the units on the right, and you can either use millimeters. Inches is probably the most straightforward for most of us on this call. You can certainly choose points if that's your preferred, or pixels even, right? So we got pixels. For us, I think it makes the most sense to use inches. So we can see here that this, of course, hasn't actually changed yet. We've still got the Pika numbering in here. So 51 picas by 66 picas. It's fine. It's just going to, once I click on letter here, and if I hit this little drop down, I'll change it to inches. And if I say hit create, I'm going to end up with a blank sheet. So this is it. This is the start, right? So that's really how anybody is going to start this process. We've now got this blank sheet. So you'll see a couple things here. We've got, file, edit, layout, type all across the top here. These are really our major functions, just like inside of, Microsoft Word, or, probably a better example is Adobe Photoshop. If you don't see certain things showing up that I'm going through, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but layers, for instance, is going to be a big one, and pages is going to be a big one. So those are going to be the kind of two major ones that I'm going to try to get through today. And a third corollary one will be links. So links are, you're trying to lay out your portfolio. Where do the images from my portfolio live? And I'll show you what that looks like once we get a couple of imported things in here. Okay, why don't I just back up a little bit, and we'll jump back to what a kind of mostly finished layout looks like, just so that we have an idea of what that looks like. So that is this. So we've got here, this is our mostly finished portfolio page, one of them. And just a couple of kind of navigation things. So if you tap, unfortunately guys, I don't even remember what the kind of standard ones are. So I'm just going to give us the shortcuts as we kind of roll through this. Shortcuts. You see my page here. I've got the layout all sorted out. Shortcuts are going to be navigation wise. If we want to zoom, hit Z. So zoom for Z, we can create a little window here, right? Kind of scroll. The scroll function is just going to be for moving around. It's not going to let us zoom, unlike Revit. So remember that. The zoom function, apologies, it's over here. So if we want to zoom out, honestly guys, I usually just hit hold control and tap the minus key. I'm just giving you guys kind of like, this is literally what I use all the time for this tool is hold the control key, tap plus to zoom in, tap minus to zoom out. If you hold control and hit 0 on your keyboard, it will kind of zoom to fit. So control 0, zoom to fit. And if you hold space while you're doing anything, so if you hold space while you're doing anything, it will give you this little hand tool. And it should give us our little hand tool. And this is going to pan. So if I hit space and then I click my mouse button and hold it, it's going to let me pan around the page. I guarantee you will use all three of these things. The zoom is going to control minus there. So control, hit our little minus key, zoom out a little bit. Yeah. So already I realize that we are, in the thick of it with navigation, and we haven't even gotten into putting things on the page. Pages. So if we come over here, we can see on the right here, this is our pages themselves. So the way that InDesign is set up is that we can introduce additional pages to documents. If I come back to my untitled document, I've got one page in it. If I wanted to have multiple pages, I can hit this little plus. So again, we're imagining that we're in a book, right? So we're in a book. Page 1 is first here on the right, so we can see page 1, page 2, page 3, and so on. So, starting the process of getting our pages into our portfolio here, 4 and 5, 6 and 7. So again, remembering we are building a little book. Second thing, super important, is going to be our layering system. So depending on how you like to work, it's good to have a text layer, an image layer. You might have diagram layers. It doesn't have to be super detailed, especially since we're just building a little portfolio here. If I double click layer 1 here, I can rename what that layer looks like. So for us, I'm just going to go ahead and do text, make a new layer. And I'm going to call it images, right? Whoops. Zoom out a little bit. And yeah, so one thing is, so we got our text and images. Some people like to use guides. I've had, mixed success with this. I like to kind of build my own guides as I go. This might be good or bad. It's whatever you feel most comfortable doing. Guides, we can actually just show a kind of guides and grids. We can show a kind of baseline grid here. So I'm going to turn on show document grid. So some people like to use this kind of grid system. I actually don't even know. It looks like this is a 1/4 inch, so a 1/4 inch grid. And some people love this. It's a great way to kind of get the layout the way that we want it to look. And this can be really helpful for those of us that really like to have grids on. I find it kind of gets tedious. It gets in the way. So this is, again, you're going to find your own way. But if we do go back to our view, a quick way to turn this on and off is I'm just going to turn this back. Hide guides. Whoops. It's going to be hide baseline grid. Hide document grid. Excuse me. Hide document grid there. So, I see. I turned off the wrong one. Show baseline grid. Show guides. So these guides, these are our margins. So these are our margins and our gutter on the page. Good idea just to kind of keep within these. It used to be that when we would print something that you couldn't get a printer to print in this kind of space at the perimeter, right? So we have some printers now do what's called a full bleed print. So if we are going to be printing our portfolios, we want to make sure that I would caution us to go outside of that guide, but I leave it to you. If you have full access to a full bleed printer, you can try it out. So oftentimes what happens with books and magazines and this type of thing, I suppose now they just print full bleed, but it used to be that you would have to print it smaller and then cut the pages, right? So these kind of like you would cut down to kind of get your margins correct. So if I come back to you can see here in my precedent example, I've got everything kind of kept within my preliminary guides for that. The gutter I've changed. I'm going to see if I can remember how to do that. I think it's just in... it's going to be inside of document setup. Margins. So it's going to be inside of the document setup here. So if I was to go ahead and, what if I wanted more of a margin at the top? If I set this to 1, for example, I hit OK, and now it's going to update. Everything's now got a 1-inch margin around each page, for instance. So now you've got an inch that you can kind of work with. I'm going to do that again super quick. So File, Document Setup, and now our margins are down here. Everything is linked. So, if I hit 1, it's going to update everything simultaneously. If I undo this, I can say top, bottom, inside, let's do 0.5, and outside, let's do 0.25. And I'll hit OK. And now we can see that everything has kind of updated. It's not quite what I wanted to do. I'm going to do this once more, and let's do 0.5. I was thinking 0.25, but let's do 0.5, bottom 0.5, inside, it must be 1, and then let's do 0.5. I'm just going to hit OK again. Something like this. I can double check. I actually might even just have it as 0.75 here. So last thing here, let's just do this one more time. We've got to inside 0.75. Aha. So I do have grids turned on. Let's see. High baseline grid. So depending on what you want to have on in terms of, these guides, I leave it to you. There's a number of different ways to get those guides into your drawings, into your portfolios. It can be really helpful to get those grids in there. I leave it to you. So again, back to the idea of those grids, we just go to view when we can grab our guides and grids and, show document grid. Really straightforward way of getting some of these elements into an idea of where we can graphically show about where we want to kind of have these 1/4 inch points. Anyhow, I'm going to turn that off. view, grids and guides, and hide document grid. What else do we got to know? Okay, let's just go through this one piece at a time. If I want to get these images in here, this is really for us. This is going to be a big piece of this. Is how do I get these images into my document? There's a couple different ways we can do this. There's really two. You can build a little rectangle frame here. So I'm going to just come up here, and I'm actually just going to get in here somewhere like this. And now I've got a little frame. I can see here that the frame is currently in images. It's my current layer. And what I can do is I'm actually going to copy this. So I'm going to, I can either come up here, edit, copy, or Control C, and then Control V to paste. Grab it, and I'm going to snap it up in here, right? Step one. So you can see here, if I'm just clicking through my layers here, in order to make sure I'm on the active layer, it's okay that I'm on images right now, but if I was supposed to be on text, I would just make sure I was on text by clicking on it before doing anything else. If I come back in here and I click on my images here, I can see that they live on the images layer. Okay, cool. So next thing, so let's grab some of those images from the portfolio. See what we got here. Got to remember, I guess it's going to be this one, and I think it's this one. So I've already got these pretty cleaned up, right? What happens if I double click here? So you can see here that I took these photos a long time ago, but just some images of some models, did my best to get some good photos in here. And what we can do is we can actually just go ahead and drag and drop, right? Doesn't look so good, right? Looks, in fact, terrible. So what the heck is going on? You might be saying to yourself, this shouldn't be an issue. Why is it all, blurry and all this stuff? So this is what's called the fitting. And what will happen is inside of InDesign, it's doing its best to fit within that frame. So there's a couple different ways we can get the fitting to show correctly. You can right click and then go in here and we can go to, where is my fitting? It's down here. And we can do fit frame to content, fit content to frame, fill frame proportionally, fit content proportionally, these types of things. So let's just see what these look like. So fill frame proportionally. Let's try this, right? Looking a little bit better. If I undo that and I'll just do a different version, fitting is here. Let's do fit content proportionally. You can see here that what's happened is it's fit the entire image, but the frame, we now have some space at the top and bottom. So, do I want to come back in here and trim this out? We could certainly do it that way, and then we can move the image. It's up to you. A couple different ways that we can do this. My preferred way, and you guys are welcome to follow along with this. I'm gonna skip the tour here. Preferred way is if I've imported an image, I'll go all the way back here. If I've imported an image and I've selected it, so I should say that the selection tool is over here. If I select this frame and I come over here to Properties tab, the Properties tab, we'll see frame fitting over here. There's all these options that we've got. I would argue for the most part, I'm using fill frame proportionally. So if I click this, it's going to give me this little wonderful crop. Pretty close. I'm going to just double check what I got here. So pretty close to what I've got in that image. In fact, it's just a little bit different because I've got a different frame size there, but pretty close. So one thing that you'll notice as you're using this is that we've got these two different selection tools. Now, be careful when we're using these. There's two different selection tools inside of InDesign. One is, think of it like for selecting anything. You want to select the object. So, here I'm just using it to select the frame object. Say I wanted to create a rectangle here for whatever reason, cancel. For whatever reason, I've got this little, again, I can select, I can shift things. I'm just selecting the whole object. Where it gets tricky, and this is the same, goes the same for Illustrator as well, is that there's this direct selection tool. And this is important because if I hit the direct selection tool, I'll show you what this looks like. So if I hit direct selection, and now I'm going to click on my image, it's probably unclear what that looks like. So I'm going to do it again, direct selection, click on my image, and it's very faint. Hopefully you guys can see this. It's very faint, but we can see this kind of teal outline. So this teal outline is the kind of true frame of your original object, right? So our original object in this case is that photo. And now what we can actually do is we can manipulate that within the frame. And right now I'm scaling. So I'm going to undo this. If I grab the corner while I've got the direct selection tool selected, you can see that I can scale this image and do all sorts of terrible things to it. I can squish it all the way down to nothing, right? I can pull this all the way out, but you can see that it does not affect the frame itself. So the frame stays intact, but now this image, you might have done something like this and gone, oh my goodness, what the heck is going on? What did I do to my image, right? And you're trying, so you're like, but I'm doing the select key. Why isn't this working? Don't panic. So what we're going to do is to get this back to kind of where it needs to be, we're going to use a selection tool. You can do this a couple different ways. For me, simplest way to get back on track when we do something like this, use the big select tool. I call these big select and small select. I know that's not what they're called, but big select, small select. So big select our box, our frame rather, and then fill content proportionally. Back to brass tacks. Everything is back to being cool. That's what we want it to look like. Shortcuts for that. V is the big select, the selection tool, and then A is the small select. So big select, small select. Super quick, if there's a situation where you want to know the size of the image, so let's say for instance we wanted to mess around with the size itself. If I come over here, I've got I can change a couple things. Oh, let's just do this again. So I've hit A, which is my small select, and I've selected the image. I've got some of these elements in here that are going to let me constrain the proportions. I can change the opacity. This is all under the properties tab here. So just making sure everything is looking the right way. So in this case, we've transformed. So I'm going to move this a little bit. Another thing, we can nudge things. So if we want to nudge this image, we can just hit our little arrows. So I hit my little arrow keys, right? I want to nudge this image. I don't like so much that it's centered on the page for whatever reason. And you can see in the top right here, my X is slowly moving across the page here. So similarly, if I go down, my Y is now changing. So this is how we're kind of moving the image. We're transforming it across the page, and this is inside of that frame. So those frames are really a helpful way of getting us to a cropped view, if that makes sense. Much like in Revit, we've got a kind of cropped view, right? So simultaneous to that, if I want to adjust the crop, I can simply, again, big select. So I'm going to big select, and I can change the crop, right? So right now I'm changing the crop of the view. Say I didn't like how that was looking. I can change it over here, and I can come back in and do a proportional fill frame, something like this. Cool, right? So some fancy things. So you can see here, I'm just going to try and pull this back to what it was before. Adobe InDesign is really good at guessing. It's kind of intuiting what you want to do. You can see it snapping to that other frame there. Can be really helpful, can be really tedious depending on what you want it to do. If things are close, it's going to try and snap automatically. Not always so hot. History is turned on for me for some reason. I'm going to move this out of the way. You might find that helpful. This is really where our undos live. So what else do I want to do? So another thing is, right now we know that the images are on this layer. So anything you build, you can turn on and off pretty easily. Another thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do it slightly differently. So here I had that frame. I can drag and drop into that frame. That's probably the simplest way to get our consistent template working. But a different way is the place command. And I have to remember where it is. It is, I only know the shortcut, place, Control D. So place is a different way of doing this. We just hit this place, And it does the exact same thing as a frame, with the exception that the frame doesn't have it doesn't have the crop yet. So I'm just going to jump in here and I'm going to grab my second image, which I believe is this one. I'm going to hit OK. And this is a little bit different because it's going to say, okay, cool. Like, I see that you have a link. Where do you want it? And how we do this is we're actually going to click once. So it doesn't really let me snap anywhere, which kind of sucks. I'm going to click once. I do that once more. So it shouldn't do that so quickly. So yeah, okay, that's what I want it to do. So if we click and drag, apologies, if you click once, it'll just kind of drop it in there. If we click and drag, we can control how big is the image that's coming in. And you can see here that my X and Y, the percentages there are the percentage of how big is the image that I'm bringing in. If I go all the way to 100, boom, right? So the challenge here is that the frame is here. We've done a frame. It's just not as clear, I would say, as when we insert the frame by itself. So again, if I want to I can drag this, I can line it up, and then I'm just going to drag it over here to my other guide. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do my frame fitting. Looking pretty good, right? So one thing I should say is, I like to use this a lot, is if you tap W on your keyboard, just tap it, it will kind of get rid of all the extra guides and any of the garbage that you've got going on inside of your document. So inside your document, you might have, a bunch of grids, a bunch of stuff going on. If you just want to see it clean, you hit that W command and everything disappears, and this is going to look like, what's the final product? What is it hanging out like? If I jump over to my kind of the precedent here, I've got my images reversed, that's okay. If I jump over here to my precedent project here, you can see I've got some other working, text, and I had some, this neat little diagram that I had done forever ago. Maybe you want to keep that stuff on the pages, but off to the sides. So think of it like a working space. The only thing that's going to print is this. So I hit W and everything else disappears. Cleans it up, makes it so I can see all the rest of the document without any of the kind of fun stuff. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to swap these real quick. Hit W to bring back my guides. And delete this. So one thing is, say, I don't personally do this, but say you wanted to have some literal, frames around your images. So one thing we might do is inside of InDesign here, we have this little color. There's the stroke and there's the fill. So the fill color is the kind of color of the inside of an object, and the stroke is the kind of line around that object. So for us, say for instance, I wanted to give a stroke to this frame here. If I double click in here, I can select a color. Let's do something really nasty. I mean, really beautiful, like a teal. Let's do a teal in here. And it should, yeah, so it's shown up. Very, very, very small stroke. And what we can do is we can mess around a little bit with how big that stroke looks. If I can find my stroke command, where's my stroke window? I'm gonna jump down a stroke here, and I can pop this all the way up to like 10 or something. And, I leave it to you. By no means it's a judgment-free zone. However you like to design your portfolios, it's totally up to you. If you like to have these little frames on there, it's totally cool. If you're like, oh, I hate that, then don't do it. And the way that we get rid of it is if we double click here, and actually I'm going to have to open up something totally different. So I have to open up something else here too. How do I get rid of my stroke? Funnily enough, I've never used this before in this program. So let's look up. What I need is color. Where's my color? Color. It is color. So what I actually want to do is, if you do see color here, if I want to get rid of a stroke, I want this none, right? So same thing over here, I jump over here, that's a little none. The little white box with the red stroke through it is nothing. Nothing is there. Good to go. So let's keep going. Let's keep going on the links and how we're actually getting our images in here. I think this is an important part of the portfolio generation. Is right now, if I jump back to my layers, I should say this, is that in InDesign, for whatever reason, I'm going to say in like 2016, they changed it. So there's this weird little bar thing that I don't even know what it's called, that lives inside of InDesign. And it's supposed to help you by keeping things neater. It drives me crazy. So usually I just pull these out of the bar to get them, if you've got two screens, even better. You can throw these things on another screen and keep them off of your main working space. I don't know why Adobe keep trying to reinvent things that are like better. Some people love it, I'm sure. It's not for me. So, where was I? Links. So you can drag any of these out. So now I've got all these separate pieces, and conversely, you can drag them all in. So I don't really understand the point of that big bar there, or we can just do something like this. So layers, one thing. So layers, I got my images in there. The second piece of this is links. So the power of InDesign is that if you are working in a space where you'd like to constantly update an image, and you're like, man, it would be great if I could just update this image, as I work through some photo editing, or I want to add some people in that image or whatever, this can be a really effective way of creating links inside of our document. So as we update things, as we change them, you'll see in real time, once we've reloaded them, I shouldn't say real time, once we've reloaded them, that we can see the effect of those changes. So for instance, here, we've got two separate files. That's going to be, if I click on big select on my image on the right, it's going to show me, okay, you're using this image. If I big select on my image on the left, it's going to show me this image, right? It's going to give me a little reference here. So I've got page 2, page 3. If I click on those, it's going to go to those links. What can be helpful, I should say this, what can be helpful is you can go to the link. Sorry, that's another one. We can relink these. So say, for instance, you've got, actually, why don't we just do it right now? I'm going to Control 0 over here. There's two things I want to do. The first is going to be relinking, and the second thing will be editing and updating a link. So let's relink first. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy these. Now jump down here to my new page. So my page is on 4 and 5 here, and I'm going to go ahead and paste in place. So if you guys haven't used paste in place before, phenomenal. Paste in place means that it will paste where you've copied from in the XY coordinates into the next document. Phenomenal, right? So now, identical layouts, right? A couple different ways we could have done this. If we didn't want to do it that way, we can actually just duplicate these. So I'm going to right click, duplicate spread. But anyways, it's for a different time. I'm going to go ahead and delete those. So what do I want to do? Let's say I want to do a layout with some, a different portfolio piece. Well, now I've got all this stuff already set up. What I might want to do in this case is come in here, and why don't I just go and I'll relink. Whoops. I will try to relink this this little document here. And what we're going to do is we're going to relink to. Great. Now I got to find my links, guys. Where are they? Okay, they're over here. Let's say, for instance, let's just do this one. Okay, I'll relink to this, hit OK. So it's going to mess it up a little bit, but we know how to fix that. And I'll relink this one as well. Let's relink. And I'll grab my little Rhino Grasshopper script here. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I don't have it. Nuts. Okay. I might not have it. That's okay. We'll do a different example here. So I'm just gonna quickly again, I'm gonna relink this. Grab this, I'm gonna relink this. Let's do a slightly different version. We are going to do a little the Mohawk version. So let's just do this. I'll relink these two, and I will relink to in this case, we can actually link an Excel document. So I'm gonna link the Excel document here, hit OK. And you could see here it's rotated and all sorts of nonsense. So I'll show you how to fix that. The first thing is I wanted to just make sure we can see that now I've got these two almost, for lack of a better word, they are very similar layouts. So you can very quickly imagine if you've got a template, you've chosen this as my layout, you can start to duplicate, you can start to copy things. The idea here is that if we can copy all these layouts, we can very quickly update those links and have a pretty robust portfolio in not so long. Just because we're here, I'm going to fix this now just so you guys can see it. This is kind of a little bit of a cluster here. So in this case, this is a rotated Excel PDF. And what we can do is, you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to rotate the frame. What I'm going to do instead is I'm actually going to rotate the base image using my small select. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to rotate it if it lets me. It should just, it's finicky. It's finicky, guys. So let's see if we can rotate it. This shouldn't be this hard. It might, well, just let me transform, rotate. So let's just do that by 90. And let's try to get this looking. Go to properties here. Do this first, and then I'm going to rotate, transform, rotate clockwise, and I'm going to grab it. I'm going to throw it over here. Ugh. Rotate by 90 clockwise. Nice, right? Looking pretty fuzzy though, right? Looking pretty fuzzy. So I wasn't actually going to do this, but let's do it anyways. So what will happen is inside of InDesign, it's really working with what I would say are low resolution previews. So it's something to be mindful of when we've got all of our photos together and all of our stuff inside of our document. We want to be careful with what the resolution of those photos look like. So if you're shooting at 300 dots per inch or 300 DPI, that shouldn't be an issue. If you get a 300 DPI image into here, it shouldn't be an issue, provided you're making it smaller. If you're making the image bigger, you're going to be diluting that amount of information in your raster image. So you can make a 300 DPI image. If you make it twice as big, it's gonna lose a lot of that resolution. So in this case, this is straight from PDF in Excel, and I'm just gonna jump over here and let's look at what this actually looks like if I open up the Excel document. Looks totally fine. What the heck is going on, right? What the heck is going on? So I know what's going on is that my preview is not quite showing me what I want it to do. So if I go over here to view and I'm going to scroll down to display performance, what we can do is we can change to high quality display. Now, fair warning, this is going to be a slog for your respective computers. It's going to change how the computer is rendering in real time what you've got as part of your images here. So if I select this, looks good. So what will happen is if you've got really high resolution images, it's going to degrade the way that it looks in the preview, but in the export, everything will be totally fine. So just beware that if you do end up with things like this, it's sometimes not as bad as it seems. So really good that I kind of did that right now, because that's something that I remember being like, what the heck is going on? So let's come back up to these. We've got our links. They're hanging out. What happens if, say for instance, I want to have a person, hanging out in this image. I want to just make this a really clever, fun little design thing here. So I'm going to come over here and go to my links, and I'm actually going to open this up inside of Photoshop. Actually, let's do this differently. I'm going to open it up inside of Photoshop. Which one did I have? It is that one. This one over here. Pop this open. And let's just do something, silly. So let's do a generative fill, person walking. Let's just do person walking, see what we get. Let's So we're back to using the generative fill inside of Adobe Photoshop, everybody's favorite new tool as of, I guess, last year. Pretty good. Close but no cigar. So, okay, we're getting somewhere. It doesn't matter. For the purposes of the exercise, it's all right. So let's just grab this. Oh, perfect. Okay, it's not quite what I want. So can I just mask? Perfect. So in the interest of not messing anything up too badly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a Photoshop file instead, just so we can make some other adjustments. So I'm going to hit save in here. Let's just do save and hit OK. And then I'm going to jump back into our InDesign file, and it's going to relink this. I have to relink it before I do anything else. So where's my date modified? Here we go. Premiere. I don't think it's a Premiere project. I guess it sees it. Okay, it sees it as a Premiere project right now. That's cool. So what we can do is, say for instance, as I'm making modifications to this, say I wanted to, collapse this. Say I wanted to change the levels. I'm going to be making some adjustments to this. Really moody. What if I've got a little filter I want to throw in on here? All sorts of fun things we can do. Let's give it a little, neon glow. Wonderful. Hit OK. And I'm going to save again and jump back into InDesign. And we can see here a little yellow caution sign. So currently, if I do a little export on this, it'll give me the whole image with the current iteration at a lower resolution. The kind of preview resolution, because it doesn't know where the original is. So if I relink this, sorry, I'm not going to relink, I'm just going to update link. So this little other symbol here, update link, going to update the link, blam. This tool, I don't think, it's really hard for me to convey how powerful this can be if you are working on 18 different images, or you and a partner are using 18 different images together. You can get your layout finished and just simply relink or update these images. It can be really powerful. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to undo those things, right? Come all the way back, save again. You say to your partner, you say to yourself, I can't believe I did that. Come back in here, relink this, and it's done, right? It's done. I don't have to do any thinking about, re-importing that image, re-putting that thing back in there. It's just done. And so that being said, that's the kind of start to getting images in there. As a starting point, I want to get us to have just some text in here. There's a whole wealth of things to unpack when it comes to text. I would say that InDesign will introduce you to your first kind of text choices end up making up way more time than they need to. I would advise for most people, Arial, totally fine. Nothing wrong with Arial. I'm just going to go ahead, and the type tool is up here, and we'll just start here. We'll make it nice and easy. We're going to drag a little text box out, and you might notice that my type, I have no type. Where is my type? It's living in Windows here. If I come down here to type in tables, we've got all of these things. So again, this is really for books, right? So there's all this fun stuff that we may or may, definitely not today, but we may or may not get into in our futures. And for us, most of us in this class are going to be interested in getting character. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. So, we've got, just like any, Microsoft Word or Photoshop or Illustrator, we've got all this fun stuff that we can use. I'm just going to grab the text. Right. I'm just going to grab the text from here, and I'm going to come and just paste it in. So what I've done here, I'm going to start over here. And this is actually a good little lesson here, is that there could be a wonderful thing where you can see here, if I drop this this text, much like the way that the frames work inside of InDesign, we can have a kind of continuation off out of frame. So if I scroll up here, you could see this little plus sign. It's very small. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. It's very small. If I zoom in, I won't do anything. This little plus sign. And what you can do is you can literally create entire narratives and copy paste them from, say you're working in Word, you can come into InDesign and you can start to lay them out on the sheet. So for instance, just gonna make a little box here, hit that little plus sign, and then I'm gonna come over here and it's going to let me continue the story. Right? So now I've got these two things, but they're on, you guessed it, the wrong layer. So I'm going to jump over here. If I've got something that's on the wrong layer, what I can do is I can just quickly pull this up and put it on the text layer. So now should be good. Hit W, get rid of those little frames around there, right? I should say that, so T is a shortcut inside here. So Caramon Premiere Pro, there's all sorts of things that we can do to the text itself. We can change the text size, right? So if I change from 6 to 9 to 10 to whatever, we can change what's called the leading. The leading is the kind of, most people are going to be comfortable with setting this to auto, which is just how you can set up the spaces between the lines. So if I say, for instance, change this to 12, you can see the leading is now changing. And leading is, of course, you probably guessed it, is leading, as in lead, as in how we used to typeset things back in the day. So we used to use lead to make all these little pieces of type. Anyhow, so that's leading. There's some other things that we can kind of play around with, some scales. If I double click inside here, I've actually set my, I think this is optical tracking, so I set to -10. Guys, you can go as deep as you want with this. I would suggest this is a good starting point, is getting our text on our pages, get some images on there, figure out what you like, get some pages generated, and a kind of, you know what, one thing I might do as a helpful kind of hint here, there's two pieces here, is you can see here this little A up here. This is really what starts our template. So you can use that template for all sorts of things. And the A parent, if I scroll down here, I've got A parent. I got page right and page left. And currently, if I just double click on here, this is what our parent looks like. If, for whatever reason, I wanted to kind of grab a ellipse, say I wanted to have a wonderful black circle at every single page, I want to have a little, black circle at the corner over here, and I'm going to put another one down here. You can see that A parent has been applied to pages 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. If I now go to if I go to page 2 and 3, there's my black dot. There's nothing I can do to select that. It lives inside of the parent. So it lives inside of the parent here. If I jump to 6 and 7, same thing. So for whatever reason, you might be wondering, why would you ever want something like that? I guarantee you it will come up. And now I can't actually select it. Oh, am I on the wrong page? There we go. So I'm back in the parent here. I'm going to delete those. And now if I just jump back to pages 2 and 3, they're gone. So where this might be helpful for us is something like a page number. So, really helpful for me anyways, is I'm going to make a little text box. And now I'm actually going to come in here to type, and I'm going to insert a special character and current page number. So pretty helpful. Depends on, again, you don't have to have page numbers in your portfolio. It's helpful depending on what you like to do. So current page number, and it's going to show up with a little A. Don't worry about that. But what we want to do is we can set all of the text parameters inside this. We can say, well, we don't want it to be 12. What do we want it to be? 6. That's good. And then, we might want to change, I like to change the color, but you might just want to leave it as black, which is fine. I'm going to just move this over here. Make sure we've got enough space, right? So if you do get up into the, If you do get up into the 20s, I don't know how long your portfolios are going to be. Jump over here to the other corner, copy paste. And now I don't have to save. I don't have to do any of that. But if I jump to pages 2 and 3, we should see page 2, page 3, right? So super helpful. Somebody navigating your document will very quickly see, oh, I'm on page 3. Cool. Whatever, right? Like, which project is this? all of those fun things. You can do that with anything. You can put, those dots that I did. You can put squares. You can put your name to remind people whose portfolio they're looking at. All of these things. Try to use them sparsely. You don't have to use all of these tools, in terms of, you don't have to have everything on your A masters. They're called parents now. They used to be called masters. That was what was throwing me. Anywho, masters, parents, whatever it is, if you do, you can actually make multiple versions of masters. So we can duplicate this, and we can make other types of parents here. So we don't have to have, maybe we've got a page number and a dot, or we've got, just your name, or we might want none. So you can see up here, we've got this none. If I jump down here, I've got pages 4 and 5. If I jump down here, and the way that I'm going to apply the master is I'm going to hold, I'm going to click once, hold shift, select again, right click, and I am going to apply the parent to the pages. In this case, I'm going to select none, and you'll see the page numbers disappear. All fun stuff. So, I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to. So the last thing I might suggest is that we have a little caption here. So for me, I'm just going to go down, and I'm actually going to edit. I'm going to paste in place here. It's in the wrong location. I'm going to move that around. I, for whatever reason, have the wrong font. I don't have Helvetica for some reason. So let's just do Arial in here. Arial Black. Let's do Arial Narrow instead. Right? Control C, Control V. Now again, if I move this around, look how smart it is. It's inferring where it wants it to be, and it's going to snap to the edge there. Boom. Right? Last step for any good portfolio, we need to export it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to export. So File, Export, and let's just export it to the desktop. MT 2018. Hit save. It's going to give me a whole list here. What would you like to export? For us, let's just export pages 2 and 3. In my head, it was going to let us do this. I see range 2 to 3. Let's just do it like that. Pages 2 to 3. Cool. And now if I just jump down here, this is going to be, it's going to downsample all of my images. So anything that's above 450 DPI, or PPI in this case, it's going to make 300, which is totally fine. 300 is totally adequate for anybody on this session. 300 is huge. So 150 is even reasonable. 300 is good. 600 is excessive. And then like 1200 is ridiculous. You don't need any of that. So let's hit export. And we'll go find it. Let's just jump to the desktop here. And MT 2018. And I should just have those 2 pages, right? So those 2 pages, it's done. Remember, we are exporting as a book, right? So it's telling me, export page 1, export page 2. Ta-da! And we can see I've got my little page 2. Whoops. Page 2 and page 3. Wonderful. All set, all done. I think that's it, guys. So in terms of InDesign, there's so many things you can get deeper and deeper on. I've used InDesign for a while. There's definitely some tools that I just don't personally use that I've seen people use that are like super helpful. It's just not what I prefer to use. So I figured this would be super helpful just in terms of getting a portfolio package together. Wanted to make sure you had a couple tools in your belt to like get here. And if you've got any more questions about InDesign, that's totally cool. I'll do my best to answer them. I think that it's a super powerful tool. Again, everything from the beginning. If you want to do a letter size portfolio, you want to do a mini portfolio, you want to do a full 11 by 17 portfolio, all those things are cool. It's really just up to you. I will say that for most of us, if you've had D&D with me before, then I would encourage you to bring a set of D&D drawings with you. And if you haven't, then I'll have you eventually. And then I would always encourage you to bring a full set of your D&D drawings with you. The portfolio is really going to be to help get you in the door, and then those D&D packages are going to be great for other things. So bring both, work on both. I think that the PDFs that you guys do for D&D can be excellent. I think that this portfolio package piece can be helpful just to really distill the ideas that you generated in those D&D studios and get a very clear picture of what you're capable of. So, think about diagrams, think about all those fun things that we're doing inside of ARC 316 or D&D. That being said, we will catch you in the next one. So very shortly, I'll be posting another video just on tips and tricks inside of Revit, which I know not everybody's going to want this InDesign tutorial. So any questions you've got about InDesign, I'm happy to answer them. This was a kind of very quick tutorial trying to get you guys up and running, and we'll chat soon. Thanks, gang. Talk to you soon. Bye.